I am furious, and you are not. As you magnify me, you are only further reducing who I am, enlarging yourselves in a way I will no longer be able to. You knew all of my weaknesses, and I knew this much all along. How you shaped them in ways that would now serve yourselves. It's as if you perfected your bluff all along, until you could do it all without me. Others have replaced me.
It's been a busy day. We've really come to know each other over these last years. I'm live on. Do you want to join?
Sure.
Thank you for being here with me. We've talked a little bit about how you guys are learning a lot of information that you didn't know. I was a bit surprised by that, given how much you have invested in finding out the truth. You've had private investigators working with you. You have been diligent, as your kids have been diligent. Is there anything that you want us to know moving forward in terms of this recent meeting that you had that revealed some information to you?
Honestly, I think that I don't know if it's going to be helpful, but it just, America needs to hear it, that the details are far more horrific than anybody ever imagined. Far more horrific.
And we know Kaylee was a fighter.
Yes.
And what the rumors about him treating female students differently, those were all confirmed.
And female cohort?
Yep, and he was under an investigation. That's all true. He wasn't fired. They said his funding was pulled, which is almost equivalent to being fired because you can't remain in the program without the funding. But this guy was arrogant. He thought women were beneath him. So I thought it was fitting that Olivia just chopped him up in pieces.
During high school, he says he wants to be an Army Ranger and seeks out a special program in addition to his regular classes at the Monroe Career and Technical Institute.
I remember working with his family and him to fill out the application. He was enrolling in the Protective Services program, and he was very enthusiastic.
So Protective Services prepares students for a career in law enforcement, EMT, things like that. Police Academy Junior, putting on pretend handcuffs. They police the building just as though they would officers on patrol.
Tanya Carmella Beers, a former administrator at the tech school.
Enrollment is very competitive. Protective Services is one of the most sought after programs. The cap is limited at 25. So that means for the 4 school districts in Monroe County, only 25 students could get in.
He needed to have good grades. He needed to have good attendance. He needed to have a discipline record that was non-existent.
We look at all the information that we can get about them because they are being given inside information about how police handle their business. Getting in can be tricky, but he was able to get into the program and he met all of those standards.
To this day, Carmella Beers and Joswiak can picture Kohberger in the halls.
I can actually see Bryan in my mind. I can see him walking because he's very tall.
I see him in his protective services uniform. I remember him dressed that way, patrolling the school with other students.
He carried the uniform very, very well, and you could tell that it was a real sense of pride for him to be doing that. This was something he was always interested in, and something that he had always studied, and it was something that he had been looking at throughout even younger years.
He was very intrigued about the law and how he wanted to go into that field. He just wanted to help people.
When I think about how he took the program seriously, he was just very much needed to be in charge of everything. Like another student would watch the students for the day, be in charge of them as their patrol officer, if you will. He liked it when the other students answered to him, but it was to the nth degree. It was a little much. At that time, it seemed like he was just really zealous. But then when I think back about it, all of those things, knowing what I know now, are flags.
Tanya Carmella Beers. She fails to inform her audience of details to support her claims, but suggests that any complaint made against Bryan Kohberger was a result of something, well, pretty serious. She informs the audience that she can't provide any further details due to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act protections. A FERPA violation occurs when educational institutions which receive U.S. Department of Education funds improperly disclose personally identifiable information from student records without written consent. Anything in a student's educational record, you see, would include a student's name, coupled with any disciplinary action kept within his student records. So, while Beers has already provided the name of a student who attended Beers' former place of employment, the Monroe Career Technical Institution, she further discloses information that, if it were true, would be part of a student's educational record, doing this without prior consent from either student or former employer. What truly qualifies Nancy Grace, or any other documentary producer, as authorized third parties, while failing to protect student confidentiality by disclosing content within a student's record. Are the individuals with whom Beers is sharing protected info, teachers or colleagues, within the context of her employment? Furthermore, do any of these unauthorized third parties truly have a legitimate educational interest in Bryan Kohberger's education? They have nothing to do with his education. Question: In the reviewed actions taken by Tanya Carmella Beers until now, has she disclosed information about student Bryan Kohberger within the official capacity as an agent of the employer or within the individual capacity? Next question. By disclosing protected information about student Bryan Kohberger from his educational record, did Ms. Tanya violate Kohberger's rights under the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act?
Because he had such supportive parents, I was very surprised to hear the accusations that are now wielded against him.
Bryan was a very good student. He was very serious about what he wanted to do. So hearing that such an egregious crime was committed was very surprising. I started to think about incidents that had occurred. And then I thought, well, that makes sense. Everybody is affected by this. Teachers, guidance counselors, everyone who has come in contact with him and had some kind of relationship, or any of the students at some time, are directly affected by this. The parents are people, sisters are people, the family are people.
Kohberger's family says he's, quote, a caring son and brother.
There had been one or two incidents that had occurred that I had dealt with concerning him. For Bryan, the situations were subtle. They weren't really bold situations, but they rose to the degree as they began to mount.
Bound by a student confidentiality law, Carmella Beers cannot reveal exact details of the, quote, incidents, but she does disclose they are related to female students.
You might not think necessarily of a female in protective services. But that was something that we recruited for. So some of the issues that arose were based on having a mixed population in that classroom. One of those incidents ultimately resulted in him being removed from that program.
She says Kohberger's kicked out of protective services, the program he works so diligently to get into in the first place. The school transfers him into the HVAC program, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This program has no female students.
We were also a little bit more comfortable knowing that any possible continuation of negative behaviors would not occur in a situation where there were no females. It was concerning because there was such a dichotomy between what he presented academically and what he was living in an emotional, social aspect of his life.
Considering Miss Tanya was MCTI's Supervisor Pupil Personnel Services, which would suggest that she was a proponent of support student success, she would have had to have known that by singling out and isolating a student from other students would be detrimental to a student's educational, emotional, and social development. Miss Tanya, also known around the water cooler as T Beers, by personally slandering a former student, continues to exhibit her sincere lack of concern for that student. After student Bryan Kohberger is removed from this program following pretty serious incidents and complaints, allegedly from female classmates, according to former school administrator Tanya Carmella Beers, Bryan is denied the equal opportunity of his educational choice and forced to switch to the HVAC program. No females in that program. They're all training to become police peoples. Yippee. Ultimately, Kohberger will not return to MCTI for his senior year. He ends up completing his high school diploma requirements through the Pleasant Valley School District's online program. This next here video will sum up what I just said.
He stood out in the fact that he was very intelligent. He was very intellectual. He would delve into topics that are not on a shallow level. The truth of the matter is there were no red flags. He had very good grades. He seemed very focused, academically motivated, and would not give a school counselor any reason for concern.
His troubles at the tech school continue.
He was in HVAC for the rest of his time at the Career and Technical Institute, and other issues arose that he decided to leave the school altogether and not complete his 12th grade year there.
After leaving the program, Kohberger finishes his senior year of Pleasant Valley High online.
Discriminatory bias is actually bullying due to a teacher's subconscious or overt gender bias. Isolating a boy from female classmates or a female from males as a form of punishment or marginalization can be a means of control based on harmful stereotypes. Doing so exclusively along gender lines, by isolating a boy from females without a good reason, is an unprofessional pedagogical approach.
Well, the bee metaphor has been around forever, of course. When I was in high school, I remember there was discussion of the queen bee, and the idea being, of course, that there's one person who dominates the hive, so to speak, and millions of other bee workers who keep her in that position. So in writing this book, that concept gets extended into this super aggressive, manipulative woman who has everyone afraid, manipulated, intimidated by her. The girl in the woman in the middle is like the girl in the middle in middle school, in that she is either helping this dynamic to continue or she feels powerless to stop it. So she doesn't actually aggress, but she doesn't stop it. And then, of course, I started to think more about a target than a victim, because there is the woman who gets targeted. She may or may not become a victim. So then the afraid to be would be the woman who is the target of aggression. And she may become a victim or she may not. I don't mean to imply that every woman is involved in this dynamic. And I don't mean to imply that I'm exempt from it, you're exempt from it, that there are certain women that don't fall prey to this, because I mentioned that kind of drive that we have. It's the woman who gets stuck in that behavior that concerns me. The woman who can't be anything but aggressive. In a new setting, she comes in and she's alienated everyone the minute she comes through the door. In the same way, the woman who gets stuck in that, she's been the target, she becomes a victim, she internalizes that role and thinks of herself as a victim, and she plays that out in her relationships with men, she plays it out in relationships with her children. She doesn't know really another way to interact. I really do see that some people don't know the difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness, and with girls sometimes just teaching that difference, that assertiveness is a win-win dynamic. You win and I win. Aggressiveness is a hurtful dynamic. I win at your expense.
There is a specific kind of heartbreak that happens in the corporate world. You've been told the narrative your entire life. Women support women. There is a special place in hell for women who don't help each other. You've watched the lean-in panels, you've joined the women's networking groups, and you've been waiting for that moment where a senior woman finally takes you under her wing. And then you get her. Your first female boss, or a senior director you've admired from afar. You show up with your best work. You're ready to learn. You're ready to be the protege. But instead of a mentor, you find a gatekeeper. Instead of a ladder being lowered, you find someone actively pulling it up. She critiques your tone in meetings, but ignores the men who yell. She withholds information you need to succeed, then asks why you're behind. She makes sure you aren't in the room for the high visibility projects. And the most confusing part? She seems to get along great with the men on the team. It's only you and the other ambitious women who seem to be the problem. This isn't a personality clash, and you aren't imagining it. What you're experiencing is a documented psychological phenomenon called the Queen Bee Syndrome. It's the dirty secret of the corporate ladder, and if you don't understand the rules she's playing by, she won't just stall your career, she will dismantle your confidence before you even realize you're in a fight. Before we get into the how, we have to talk about the why. Because if you think she's doing this because she's mean or insecure, you're going to miscalculate your response. The Queen Bee isn't a villain in a movie. She is a survivalist. Think about the world she came up in. If she's 10 or 20 years your senior, she started her career in a room where there was only one chair for a woman. Just one. She didn't get to that chair by being nice. She got there by being better than the men, tougher than the men, and crucially, by proving she wasn't like other women. In her mind, the corporate world is a zero-sum game. If you succeed, it doesn't mean women are winning, it means you are coming for her chair. Psychologists have found that women who reach high-level positions in male-dominated environments often distance themselves from junior women to solidify their own standing. By pointing out your emotionality or your lack of experience, she is telling the men in the room, "Don't worry, I'm not one of them. I'm one of you." She doesn't see herself as an oppressor. She sees herself as someone who paid her dues in blood, sweat, and tears. And when she looks at you, with your boundaries and your expectation of mentorship, she feels resentful. She thinks, "I had to suffer to get here. Why should it be easy for you?" This is a defense mechanism for her own survival. If you understand that, you can stop being hurt by it and start managing it.
Count 1, entitled Removed from Duties, Sex Discrimination, alleges that the plaintiff was discriminated against on the basis of her sex. This claim is based on the defendant's requirement that the plaintiff take an administrative paid leave following her internal complaints of discrimination to her supervisor at MCTI, defendant Tanya Beers, and the director of MCTI, defendant Thomas Rushton, Jr. It is also based on the defendant's requirement that the plaintiff, Thoreau, sign a performance improvement plan while her male counterparts were not so required. Count the second, entitled Removed from Duties. Retaliation discrimination sets forth a straightforward claim of retaliation based on the plaintiff's internal discrimination complaints. Here, the plaintiff alleges that the defendants retaliated against her by forcing her to take a paid leave of absence following her complaints, and then requiring her to undergo a medical evaluation before returning to work. The plaintiff's male counterparts were not so required. Count 3, entitled Discharge Retaliation Discrimination, also alleges retaliation. This count is based on the plaintiff's termination after her internal complaints of discrimination. The plaintiff alleges that her male counterparts, who she made complaints about, were not terminated. She also alleges that she was terminated even though she submitted a psychological evaluation allowing her to return to work after her paid leave period. The plaintiff also supports Count 3, and perhaps all of her claims, by alleging that she was required to sign a performance improvement plan without being provided with a union representative. Co-defendant Thomas Rushton IV, like Tanya Carmella Beers, left the Monroe Technical Career Institute in 2015, just months after Sharon Thoreau filed her discrimination lawsuit, which was on September the 12th, 2014.
Hello everyone, Sharon Throw here. I'd like to talk to you a bit about implicit and explicit bias and what is the difference between the two. Well, after reading the Schenker blog and articles written by authors Valenzuela, Davis, Sensoy, and D'Angelo, even Quintero, Gorski, and Garcia, we learn about how implicit bias involves attitudes, stereotypes, and beliefs that can affect how we treat others. But what exactly is implicit bias? Well, implicit or unconscious bias operates outside of the person's awareness and can be in direct contradiction to a person's espoused beliefs and values. So, how many times have you heard an individual say, "I'm not a racist," but yet, in the same breath, makes a racist remark? In the case of explicit or conscious, the person is very clear about his or her feelings and attitudes, and related behaviors are conducted with intent. Another way for me to describe this is unconscious bias refers to a bias that we are unaware of and which happens outside of our control. Implicit bias refers to the same area but questions the level to which these biases are unconscious, especially as we are being made increasingly aware of them. So, can implicit bias turn into explicit bias? The answer is yes. So, for example, if an employer refuses to allow a female worker to lift heavy packages because he believes women are not strong enough, then this form of bias is considered explicit. But if the employer is subconsciously assigning tasks to female employees that doesn't require heavy lifting, like stuffing envelopes, and is questioned about it, then decides to assign heavy lifting to women, then this is considered implicit bias because he addressed the matter. At the same time, can you see how implicit bias has now become explicit? What I'd like you to do now is partner up with someone sitting next to you. Groups of 2 or 3 will be fine. And exchange an example of when you experience either implicit or explicit bias. Thanks for watching and good luck!